Our story starts out with a girl who did really well all throughout school, grade school, all throughout high school. She got really good grades, on the honor roll, did a lot of after-school activities, a lot of clubs and things. The year is now 2013, and it's time to graduate. And there's only one thing standing in the way of her graduation and future. It is her SAT score. She wasn't able to get into the college that she wanted to because her SAT score didn't meet the requirements of that school. SATs and standardized tests cannot measure the true worth of a student. In the 1940s, standardized tests were actually used to keep Jews out of Ivy League schools. And now in 2016, they're being used to keep worthy students from furthering their education because they can't pass a generic test. Long-term studies have actually shown that standardized testing can do more to harm students than to help them. In 2011, a 9-year study by the National Research Council came to a conclusion that tests yield actually little progress for students when it comes to graduation exams, tracking exams, screening exams. It can actually hurt students more so than help them at all. With graduation exams, students that are minorities or low-income families, or maybe that don't speak English very well, aren't going to pass those exams as easily as English-speaking American students would. So they might not be able to graduate because of that, even though their grades say they can. Tracking exams do nothing at all for people who actually pass them, even with flying colors. But for people who don't do well on those exams, they can be held back or have other penalties to their grades. And screening and readiness exams can be used to show whether or not a student is ready to move on or whether they have some sort of learning disability. And these can often lead to misguided interpretations that cause people to not be able to learn as well as they possibly could. So what are these tests actually used for? Why do we really need them? Several federal organizations, such as No Child Left Behind and Race to the Top, mandated these tests to measure things such as learning progress of students, achievement gaps in schools, teacher and school quality, learning disabilities, to either promote or hold back students, and even graduation. But when the quality of the core curriculum is being ignored because teachers have to spend so much time teaching how to take a test, it really hinders students from learning the core qualities and skills they need to learn throughout life. A national study in 2007 by the Center of Education Policy reported that since 2001, 44% of school districts were actually taking time away from teaching students social studies and arts programs to spend more time on test prep, which means teachers are losing sight of what is actually important to students and what is actually important to learn to take time to teach students how to take a standardized test. Not even the skills on how to learn or what to learn for these tests, but they're literally teaching the students how to pass the test, which honestly doesn't really get retained by anyone. I can tell you firsthand, I know nothing from my SATs. Which is actually kind of funny because after mandating these tests, with the No Child Left Behind Act, the U.S. actually dropped from being 18th in the world in mathematics to being 31st, which is a huge drop. And there were similar results for science as well. Reading and writing didn't have much of a change, but science also declined, which kind of brings up the question, what are these tests actually teaching students, if anything? It kind of brings up the question to some people as what constitutes as education? Most standardized tests can test students on things such as reading and writing, comprehension, mathematics, and science. But there are many other things that students need to learn in school to do well in life later, even out of school, out of college. Gerald W. Bracey, PhD, actually believes that these life skills are more important than some of the life skills being taught in schools. And these are none of the skills on here that can be, none of the skills on here can be tested by a standardized test. So imagine a world without standardized testing. What would we have? More unique students succeeding throughout school, being able to go to college, more creative minds going to college and getting a higher education to hopefully make the world a more unique and better place. And teachers get to keep their jobs. Teachers are losing their jobs more and more each year because they are not doing what they need to do to teach students how to take a test. So from those test scores, teachers are losing their jobs. Not just because they can't teach well. A lot of them can teach perfectly well, but students aren't caring about the test because they know they don't mean anything. So in turn, it makes the teachers look bad, which makes the schools look bad. And fun fact, the US is actually the only nation that relies on standardized testing to calculate these sorts of things. The US is actually the only nation that has the funds to rely on standardized testing. Other nations don't spend time on teaching standardized tests in class, yet their students have been shown to do better on international exams than American students have. Now, there are some things that we can do to help reform the standardized testing that we have today in schools. There may not be a lot that we can do, but there are some things. There are many petitions out there that you can sign that will go to the Board of Education to help ask for a better representation of our school system, because obviously standardized testing isn't working. This is one petition that I found to reform the PARCC testing, which is the Partnership for Assessment of Readiness for College and Careers. Now, today, hundreds of colleges have already done away with mandatory SAT and ACT scores because they've actually realized that it doesn't really help very much. So with that being said, all I can do is that you ask and help me to help America.